And our next talk is on abbreviations and our next topic is on describing places, events, and objects. This is our topic. And you can ask me a question. Why are we going to discuss this one and we know how to describe it all? But that is not the way. When we are describing something, we must take into certain things into account. So for that sake, we have to discuss this one. And not only for that, when you are doing this one, when you are doing this exercise, you take it for granted. You're going to improve your writing skills, and not only that, and even your speaking skills. These are the two skills that we're going to improve when we are doing this one, because this will actually help us how to describe a place, how to describe an event, and how to describe an object. So if I'm not mistaken, most of us when we are asked to speak about a place, we speak something. But here we're going to give you certain instructions and certain certain points which you have to cover. So when you're actually going to cover those points, you're going to make it an exact point what we are actually looking for. And also you can also take the same thing when it comes to speaking. So, and for which what you need, they're going to be three important things which you need to follow when you're actually describing these things. And what are they? And what are those things that we have to follow? Let's see.
Right. Let's see how actually we're supposed to describe places, events, and objects. So as I told you, the importance of this one, and let's discuss more about this one and what are the things, what are the steps that we have to take when we are actually describing a place and the events and the objects. And see here, when we are actually describing, what is a description means? What is describing? Describing is nothing but it's a depiction. It is nothing but giving a detailed account of something in words, using words. For example, when we are asking about something, when you like a place, you're going to tell something about them. You're going to depict about that place, or you're going to depict about that person. You're going to tell something about that particular thing. So you're going to give a complete, detailed account of something using words. That is what actually. So when we are describing, we have to keep three things in our mind. The first one is here, we must have power of observation, and second one, we must have memory, and thirdly, we must have ability to use appropriate vocabulary. The first thing is here, power of observation. What is this power of observation? What is the importance of this one? So power of observation is nothing but, see, when we go to a place, we observe each and everything, and we try to and we try to observe and what are the things that are actually happening over there. So, and secondly, the memory. So whatever you have witnessed there, whatever you have observed there, that has to be memorized. And thirdly, we must be in the position to deliver that. So through our words or through our writings, whatever it may be the thing it is. So we the one who should be in the position to use appropriate vocabulary according to the context. And if we are actually talking about a place, we must have a good terminology with that. And if you're talking about a person, or if you're talking about a thing, we must be in the position to use appropriate vocabulary according to that context. And let's see, what else do we need to do. See, let's see, how are we supposed to describe a place when it comes to that. So but remember the things that we discussed earlier. We must have a power of observation, we must have memory, and followed by vocabulary. These things are very important. These things are very important to describe anything for that matter. So let's see, how are we supposed to describe a place. See here, when we are actually a good description always depends on how you actually visualize that place. For example, when we were all watching film called Bahubali, before release of Bahubali, we might have had some visualization about that, or even the director might have visualized that entire that country of Maheshmati. The same thing is here when we are decided to describe something. When we wanted to tell something about a place, we must visualize it. So the way you visualize, so the no the result. So in order to give a good description about a place, we must need a close observation. Otherwise, we cannot give it. For example, if you go, we all go to Charminar, we all go to Falknuma Palace, we all go to Golconda Fort, or we may go to Salarjung Museum, or sometimes we may go to what do you call that place? Ramoji Film City. We go there. Until and unless you observe everything keenly and closely, you're not going to remember anything for that matter. You take it for granted. You take it for granted. We are not going to remember anything because if somebody asking you, if somebody asks you, what did you experience over there, or what the things that you have seen, so that next time when they go there, and depends on your observation, depends on your explanation, depends on your description, they're going to visit that place. So that is the reason when we go to a place, we must need a close observation. See, remember, we discussed 2 points here. When we are talking about a good description, always gives, if you wanted to give a good description, you need visualization. And second thing is here, good, a close observation. These are very important when you decided to describe your place. And finally, when we are actually going to describe your place, you have to take certain things into account to describe it. The first one is here, when you are talking about a place, the first, as I told you, as we discussed earlier, visualization. What is this visualization? Is nothing but what you have seen, what you have experienced there. And second thing, auditory, what you heard about that place. For example, let's talk about Ramoji Film City. So as soon as you enter into that, you have to travel for 10 kilometers, and then onwards, you going after taking some rides, and you experience some cinema settings, and you experience some places that you have seen in the movies. No, everything will be seen. Everything will be seen by us there. And next, what you actually heard of that place. You might have heard that many of the cinema shootings and the serial shootings, and even not only our Tollywood, and even Bollywood and Hollywood people would come here and they shoot here, and you might have heard of them. And that has to be presented when you're describing a place. Next, olfactory, what you actually smell, and gustatory, what you actually taste. So, what kind of food that you actually tasted there. So, these are the 4 points that you have to cover, that you have to speak about, a place. So, remember, without these 4 things, we cannot describe any place for that matter, right? Let's see an example. So, here we gave 2 paragraphs, if I'm not mistaken. I thought of reading, but it's going to kill our time. But okay, let me read out bigger. Um, yeah, you do one thing, just have a glimpse on that, so that we go further. So this is what is all about. It's about a fair. It's all about a fair. The sound of the children riding on a Ferris wheel and screaming in excitement is what caught our attention first, as we are still approaching the fairgrounds. So when they are actually approaching the fairgrounds, they happen to hear these children screaming, and ferry wheels and all, etc., etc. They happen to hear. We were just about buying our tickets and beginning to appreciate the riot of colors at the entrance, with the displayed boards, balloons, and festoons and banners, when 10-foot man appeared at the gates to welcome us. Well, with this tall clown hat, he appeared much taller. He bent down a little from his stilts to shake hands with us. Facing the entrance at about a couple of feet was the cotton candy whirling away and producing one of the most attractive eats at the fair. So the stall had a long line of kids and adults impatiently waiting in the line for their turn to feel the cotton candy quickly melt in their mouth, leaving a sweetness to enjoy until the next munch. See here, that is a paragraph actually we discussed. So it is actually talking about a fair, and the things that they have experienced over there. Let's see what are the key points that we have seen here. See, at the first image of sights, what we have seen, images of sight, what you have seen, visualization, rights of colors, balloons, and balloons and festoons and banners. That is what we have experienced. And second thing is here we happen to heard sounds of what, sound of children riding on ferry wheels and screaming in excitement. That is the first lines of that paragraph. And taste, gustatory, yeah, feel the cotton candy. They are talking about the cotton candy in the paragraph. So these are the main points that we actually covered in this description of a place. So we, the one who should be in the position to remember these 4 points when we are actually discussing. So these 4 points are actually covered in that paragraph. So without which we cannot actually satisfy or justify it, our description towards this place. And next, let's see how to describe an event. See, sometimes these events are very interesting and very important too. So, and sometimes they are inspiring, and some when you attend an event and you come all the way to home, and you keep on talking about how it actually went, how it actually happened, how whom you met there, and what all the things that you happen to experience there. So you're going to share, you're going to describe them to others. So when we are talking about that, we don't imagine events, right? So events cannot be imagined unless you experience it. So, and you actually talk about it, and also you communicate more on culture and political perspective. So these are the points that we actually uh, take into account when we are actually describing it, right? Let's see what are the key points that we have to remember, that we have to keep, that we have to take into account before we describing an event. See here, whenever we are describing an event, remember, for we have double H questions. We have double H questions. So these five double H questions need to be remembered. Need to be remembered at the time of describing an event. See, what are those? The first one is here. You must remember what, who, where, when, and why. So these are the questions that supposed to trigger in your mind when you're actually discussing these descriptions. What means what? Clearly state which event you're talking about. That is what you have to talk. That is what you have to tell when it comes to what point and who. Name main people participants in the event. Who are the no, participants and who actually invited and what it is all about. And next, where? So the setting for the event means the place. Is that happened in a garden or in a palace or at a restaurant or at a hotel. So that is the place you have to describe. And next, when? Give the details of year, time of the event. So when it happened and the year and why. Explain the significance of the event. Why they actually conducted that event. So what the event is all about. That. What is the importance of that event? These are the things that we have to take into account when we are actually describing an event. So don't forget that when we are actually describing a place, these are the 4 points that we have to take into account: visualization, auditory, olfactory, and as well as gustatory. So when we are describing an event, don't forget to have all these WH questions, which actually tells what, who, where, when, and why, right? So this is how we actually describe an event. Um, when it comes to an object, how are we supposed to describe an object? So till now we have seen how we have to describe a place and how we have to describe an event and how we going to describe an object. See, when we're actually talking about an object description, we normally speak about the appearance and as well as the function and the usefulness of the object. These things are actually taken into account when we are actually describing describing an object. So remember one thing, whenever we are actually describing an object, make sure we have to use only simple present tense. Simple present tense. But if you are talking about things we have seen in the past, then we should use simple past. So either you have to you're going to be allowed to use only two tenses. If you are talking presently about that object, you must use a simple present tense. If you have already experienced, if you have already seen that, then you must use or you must talk about simple past. These are the two tenses that you have to use when you're actually describing an object. Let's see what are the things to be considered when we are actually describing an object. So remember one thing, whenever we are actually describing an object, we focus mostly on shapes, materials, and as well as textures. Only these things will be taken into account. For example, when we are describing an object, so we talk about the material. So what material that they have used? Is that a glass, wood, stone, etc.? So this is what actually the material we talk about. And second one, we talk about the texture. So whether it is rough, smooth, grainy, etc., or something. And also we actually talk about how the appearance of that. Is that glassy, opaque, transparent, etc. We talk about. And then we talk about the shape too. I said round, flat, angular, or in rectangular, and what kind of shape is it in. And next, what is the color of the object? These are the things that we actually take into account when we are actually discussing, when we are actually discussing, or when we are actually describing an object. So this is how we actually describe the things when it comes to descriptions. And remember one thing. So in the examination, what they're going to ask you, they'll ask you to describe a place, or they may ask you to describe an object or an event. Remember, you're not supposed to you're not supposed to write the same content what you are actually aware of. The thing is here, you're the one who's supposed to be in the position to understand what kind of content you need to present. So when we are talking about a place, we have to take care of visualization, gustatory, olfactory. Right, these are the things that supposed to be taken into account. But when we are actually talking about a description of an event, you have to bother, you have to look after, you have to go after. What do you call that? You have you have to take into account of all double H questions. So as you are seeing here, you have to satisfy all these double H questions, not these one, not exactly this. You have to satisfy all these things. You have to satisfy all these questions. Well, you have to mention what you are talking about. You have to tell who actually participated, who are the chief guests, and who actually welcomed them, and need to be explained each and everything. And you have to talk about the setting, and you have to talk about the details of details, and as well as time of that event. And next, and also you have to explain the significance or the importance of that. So this is how the things actually will be taken into account when we are actually describing them. So when it comes to object, it is completely different than what we actually discussed till now, because we actually talk about the appearance or the function or usefulness of that particular object, and followed by, so here we have a tense restriction. So we cannot use any other tense, but we have to use only two tenses. First one is here. If you're talking about that object in the present or in present condition, then you must use a simple present tense. If you already have experience, if you already have seen that thing, then you have to talk about, then you have to use a simple past tense. So these are the points that you have to cover when you are actually describing a place. So this is what is all about. So the things to be considered when we are actually describing a place, events, and as well as objects. So in the exam, they may ask you to write it for 10 marks. You can expect most of the times it is given for 10 marks. Remember one thing, you try to expand your talk, so this will actually help you to enhance your writing skills better. And moreover, I'm telling you, you the one who's supposed to be in the position to understand one point, that you must hold, you must update your vocabulary, because until and unless we cannot write it anything, when we have vocabulary, we can be a good presenter of our thoughts. If you're not going to have that, you're not going to speak at anything, you're not going to write at anything, and there is no use of no attending that thing too. So that is the reason you're the one who's supposed to be in the position to understand the importance of this one, and try to enhance your your vocabulary skills, your vocabulary, and as well as your writing skills. So this topic actually helps you to improve your writing skills a lot. So don't forget. So these are the three things which we need to remember when we are describing anything for that matter. If it may be, if it is a place, an event, or an object, make sure you must have power of observation, you must have memory, you must be in the position to use appropriate vocabulary when you're talking about that particular place or object or an event. So this is what is all about describing places and events and objects. And if you still have any doubts regarding to this topic, you can ping me on WhatsApp or else just give me a call. Thank you.